It's the I Can't Mom Today podcast with Heather, the new mom, and Vera, the seasoned mom. I Can't Mom Today.
Hey, this is Vera and Heather back again with another episode of I Can't Mom Today podcast. Hi, Vera.
Hey, Heather. How's it going?
Oh, man. Another cold in our house.
Oh, no.
We're like
really?
back-to-back colds right now. It's killing me. I feel like I'm having deja vu of when Baker first started daycare.
Oh,
It's like every other day. And it's not COVID. So, I've tested it. So it's not that, but it's just like, holy cow.
We just got a text message from a friend of ours we went to dinner with on Sunday, and she tested positive this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, no, I've got to get tested again. That would be my third test in the last 10 days.
Yeah. Did you get the free test from the federal government?
We ordered them, but we haven't gotten them yet. But there's a place down the street from us that's very easy, and they do both rapid and the PCR, and you can usually get in the same day. So I've just been going there.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm kind of like, and we're supposed to have company coming this weekend, and it just, everything is kind of off kilter. And I had a cold myself too, with not COVID, but just a cold, and that sets you back. So I feel you, man.
Man, it's crazy.
So is it just Baker getting the colds, or
he's the only one
Brad?
getting them?
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're building his immune system.
I know, but I'm just like, he wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning coughing, and then I go in there and it's just not good sleep, you know. But it's okay. It's okay. We still get through this as well. And then we especially have construction going on in our house. So we got the drywall fixed in the downstairs. So now we're planning bathroom remodel, but
fun.
Yeah.
It's great once it's done, but while it's getting done, it's a pain in the rear.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Well, today we have a very special guest. We have Brad Baldridge with Baldridge College Solutions. And Brad, you're going to help us kind of navigate through college. I mean, I'm already thinking with Baker, he's 4, I get it, but no, it's never too early to start planning, right?
Oh yeah.
You're right. Absolutely. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, tell us a little bit of, give us your background and everything. We know you're a college funding a specialist, which is why you're here. But do tell us something about your background, what got you into this and all that.
Right. So I've been in the financial industry about 25 years now. And about 15 years ago, I started realizing that a lot of the people I was working with needed extra help around college because it was getting more and more complicated, more and more expensive, and becoming a bigger deal. So I decided to kind of be that go-to person and really focus on all the different strategies and how it worked over the years. So as I got more involved in it, I launched a podcast with all that information because I feel like there's just not enough good information out there around college. So I have Taming the High Cost of College as a podcast, and that's led me to, more information and more, so now people are coming to me with new software and websites and all that kind of stuff. So there's just a growing community around figuring college out.
Yeah.
Well, it's scary. It's scary. I mean, I know because luckily I did save some for my son. Unfortunately, he's not in school right now, but that's a whole nother podcast. But my niece, she just got into a school that my sister said after expenses and everything is going to be $80,000 a year. And I'm like, that's almost $250,000 by the time you're done with 4 years. That's more than my house, for first or second houses.
Yes, for sure. Right. I hear that a lot as when I give presentations of, the school is crazy expensive. Is it really worth it? And again, for some families, perhaps it is, and they can afford to spend the money. So go ahead. I mean, we all earn our money and we all spend our money on something. Occasionally I hear someone say, well, that college isn't worth it. Or it's well, it's worth it to some of them because there they are, they're going. So, but finding the right fit for your family, I think is the biggest challenge. Especially because even if the sticker price is $80,000, that doesn't mean that's what most people pay or what everybody pays for sure, because there's various scholarships available where many families can go to that very expensive school at a lower cost than their in-state school, but not always. And it's a challenge to figure out, well, am I going to be one of the quote unquote lucky ones where I get a lot of scholarships and other discounts, or am I going to end up paying closer to full price? And that's part of the process that I think most families are really confused by, and rightly so, because it is confusing.
And Vera,
That's
isn't that what
that-
happened to
I'm sorry.
you?
What?
Isn't that what happened to you? You didn't go to New York because it was like just as expensive to go to FSU.
Yeah. So Brad, just so you know, I'm from Brooklyn originally, and I ended up going to Florida State. And back when I went, um, the in-state tuition in New York was still, I think that the in-state tuition was about maybe like 8,000 a year, including expenses. And Florida State, even out of state though, it was only like 10,000. So it wasn't exactly the reason that I came to Florida State, but it was like I was able to, because that was about our budget. And I really wanted to get out of the cold because I hate cold weather. So, so Florida State, I was like, perfect, I can afford it and we're good to go. Of course, now it's like 4 times that much because I went to college a few years ago,
Yeah.
but it's still the different states. It can be very different, you know, depending on which state you live in. Like you're saying, in state, out of state can all be very different.
Right, exactly. And then there's these different agreements, reciprocal agreements. Like here in Wisconsin, you can go to the Minnesota state schools as if you were a Minnesota resident, and conversely, Minnesota residents can come to Wisconsin schools.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting little thing that you have to be aware of, and then you're more willing to look at the schools in Minnesota because all of a sudden the price is right. And those kind of those types of agreements, there's different associations and that type of stuff across the country where, you know, again, another example would be like the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. You know, if you're in the panhandle of Texas, you're a long ways away from most of Texas, but you can actually go to some of the Arkansas schools as if you were an Arkansas resident. Again, and that's great because they're 2 hours away instead of 12.
Yeah.
So that, you know, there's all these different ways that families can, you know, find a school that's at the right price. And
well, what? Oh, I'm sorry.
And that's part of the challenge, right? There's kind of 2 steps to the process when you're in the final stages, is find a school at a price that's right for you, whatever that means, and then pay for that price efficiently, whether in fitting that into your budget, you know, saving and investing properly, choosing the right loans, all that kind of stuff. So there's kind of 2 steps that families need to go through.
Well, that's I where I kind of was thinking. So what if like Baker, other son is 4.
Mhm.
What can she do now? Because she doesn't know. He could be like, forget college, bleh, you know, but at least what could she start doing now? Because I know with my son, like I'm in Florida and we have the Florida prepaid program. So when my son was about Baker's age, I started doing that. So, and that would cover any state school in Florida. And then there are some reciprocal schools, like there's a couple in Alabama, there's a couple like that are, you know, within a few hours away, like you were saying, that have reciprocal agreements that would accept it. So that was really cool. Although unfortunately my kid's not in school. But can you tell that bothers me? But the fact of the matter was that I knew that no matter what happened, and it was only like $120 a month, and all of his I didn't do room and board, but it did tuition and fees. So that was doable, $120 a month till he was 18, and I was good to go for him. So are there, I mean, I know because we only have so much time, but how would somebody figure out if they have a small child right now, what the best first step would be to take?
Right. Well, I think the best first step is to really figure out what your commitments to college are. I've got some parents that are, you know, they feel college is entirely their responsibility. They're going to pay for it all. They're going to take out the loans if that's what's needed. And I've got other extreme, of course, is where, you know, I paid for all the college that I went to myself, and my kid's going to do the same. Now, the caution there is, way back when a lot of parents went to school, it was much more affordable and doable for a typical student. Now it's very hard for a typical student to raise $10,000 and $20,000 a year to cover, you know, just a basic tuition and maybe room and board.
Yeah.
So I think the first step is to decide, you know, are we committed to covering education? And I think it has a lot to do with how large your family and stuff is as well, where, you know, we just can't make that huge commitment if we've got 4 kids compared to if we only have one.
Mhm.
But then if you are going to do it, then you have to kind of realize that because you're deciding to pay for college, you're going to have to give something else up.
Mm.
So maybe have a slightly smaller house so that you can afford college in the future, which, again, the caution that I guess I'm talking about is I see a lot of families with 16, 17, 18-year-olds saying, we make a good living, we make a couple $100,000 a year, but it's all committed. We've got the nice house with a big mortgage payment. All the kids are in all these sports and activities and all this stuff. And we essentially don't have any money for college.
Mhm.
And of course, the typical family earning 100,000 says, well, you're crazy. I mean, you have an extra $100,000 a year. How can you not afford college?
Yeah.
But it's the bigger garage theory, right? I don't care how big your garage is, it's always full. And if you got a bigger garage, you just have more stuff. A lot of people just learn to spend all they make before they factor in college. And then when college comes along, it's painful and again, at any income level, whether it's, middle income, upper middle income, that type of thing. So if you make that commitment and realize, okay, well, and retirement goes along with that, right? So let's put 10% for retirement and a few $100s a month towards college, or $1,000 a month towards college, or whatever the math requires. And again, for many families, you might not want to commit it to college completely. You just have it set aside so that you could use it for college if you needed to. Because again, if you've got a 4-year-old, you don't really know that college is in the future.
Yeah.
And another caution is, will college be the same?
True.
I feel like higher education is due for a reform. It hasn't happened yet, but I feel like things need to change. One thing that definitely is changing is prices aren't going up as fast as they used to. So a lot of colleges are still raising their top line price, so their 80,000 becomes 85,000, but their scholarships go up at the same rate. So their scholarship goes from 40,000 to 45,000. So all of a sudden it's like, well, they didn't really raise the net price. They raised but so people who aren't going to get any aid, of course, they have to pay more, but people that need aid, a lot of times they're not bearing the brunt of that cost increase. So It gets complicated. And, that's part of the process of, building a financial plan of some sort where you include college, if that's something that's going to be important to you while the kids are young, so that you can, again, do it all and do it all reasonably well.
So what would be the first, so let's say somebody decides, okay, well, I want to make sure that we at least have the money to cover tuition and fees or whatever, the majority of my kids' tuition. What are some of the financial tools that they should look for? Like I know about like 529 plans and, like I was saying with Florida having the Florida prepaid. Like what are a couple of the basic things that somebody can just do a search on and be like, okay, what's a 529 or what's a this or what's a that?
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of 529s out there. Most states offer 529s. There's good things about them and bad. So that's not where I would typically start. You need to have a good solid financial foundation, have your retirement covered and all that type of thing before you would start dedicating money solely to college. Because again, there's lots of benefits, but there's also a lot of penalties. If you need that money for other things or college doesn't happen, you're going to end up, paying a lot of penalties and that type of thing. So I think those programs are good if they're used properly after you've got some reserves and that type of thing. So often what I do with families that are relatively young is we aggressively save for retirement and just start building their net worth so that they have options when college comes along. If you have $100,000 in the bank and or investments or whatever it might be, now you have options to say, well, that could be college money, but if college doesn't happen, then it could be retirement or an addition on the house or whatever else is important to us. So that's where I, at the very young, I just get a little nervous about, people that are putting college ahead of everything else, and I just get worried that, well, college may or may not happen. And again, you could have that student that does really well and gets that full ride. And then it's like, well, the one thing we had done well was college, and we don't need money for college.
Right.
So again, I think it's balancing is for the young kids. It's really balancing everything and realizing, especially if you're got a career that you're likely to grow in your career where, I just started out and I know I'm going to move up the ladder and get some raises, and a lot of times we're dealing with daycare and other very, very expensive things when we have young kids. It's like when those expenses go away, then focus on college.
Yeah.
But what happens a lot of times is we find some other expenses, and
Yeah.
before we know it, college is here. We haven't done our best, so to speak.
Exactly. So maybe what you would suggest is possibly look into, well, like you were saying, set aside for the priorities, and then maybe look into some kind of a savings plan where you're just saving in general. So then, like you said, by the time the kid's 18, you could use that for college or not.
Right. Or even at 12, you could say, okay, it's pretty clear, or, freshman in high school or something. It's pretty clear college is coming. They are academic. They keep talking about wanting to be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is that's going to require a college education. And okay, now we're comfortable that college is really happening, and we're close enough now to college to realize that, this is the system we're getting into. Like I said, if you had a 2-year-old and college is 16 years away, it's hard to know what, some of these changes, distance learning and some of these things that are coming down the pipe, will they have an impact or not? So far, they have not, but just like driverless cars are gonna maybe have an impact, but they keep talking about it, but nothing happens.
Do you think that college will look different? Meaning that right now we have all these master classes coming out and like all these certifications and certificates and blah, blah, blah coming out. Like, do you think that college in the way we know it, where it's like you have to do your first 2 years and you have to do all this math and all this other BS that you don't really need, like if you're not going in, if I'm not going into rocket science, why am I doing like calculus, right? Like it doesn't matter, like, that doesn't matter, but I have to do it because it's part of the required curriculum. So,
right.
Do you see it changing? Maybe that's a 2-year degree versus a 4-year, since we already just did 4 years in high school. And now, we know that you can do some sort of putting together sentences, like that's fine. Now we're going to go into your actual degree versus now we're going to make you do 2 more years of like what you did in high school.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of pretty big disconnects right now. As an example, if you want to be an elementary ed teacher, it's clear that you need to go get an elementary ed degree. And it's also very clear that you're likely to be a teacher if that's the degree you're studying. I mean, there's a very direct correlation, and you see that in accounting and nursing and a number of others. But if you want to be an MRI salesman, what degree do you need for that?
Yeah.
Or if you want to be a podcast host, what degree do you need for that?
There's communication schools for that.
Right. I mean, but do you need that? Right. If you want to be a rock star, what degree do you need for that?
Yeah.
Right. Well, you need to get a guitar. You need to get to work.
So do you see it being more alternative learning in the future versus college? Because I feel like it has changed in schools as well, where it's like always in the school district I taught it or I interned in, it was college ready, college ready, college ready. But then there was a shift that it was like career and college ready, because they knew that all kids weren't going to go to college. College is not for all people. And so they shifted that thinking and verbal communication. So I think, do you see that coming?
Oh, for sure. And that's part of it. And the other challenge we're up against in the past anyway, was the large corporations. When they were looking for work, they would always say, must have a college degree. And a lot of times they would say, well, it doesn't matter what the degree is in, but they put that requirement on there just to know that, again, a lot of kids can get through high school and not really be able to do much, right? They can't hardly read, they can hardly write, they can barely do math, and they have a high school degree. So that's not a bar anymore. So they just put the college bar on there to make their life easy. And recently now that they're having a hard time finding workers, now I think a lot of them are saying, well, we don't really need the college degree anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's limiting our pool of applicants. We need more applicants. So we're going to take that off and spend more time, evaluating and making sure that they're a good fit. So, so when that kind of shift happens, or if that shift happens, I think I think there might be some skills tests or something that where you go to college, and we do that out of college now for some professions, like nurses need to pass the boards and et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you could pass the nursing boards without going to college, could you be a nurse? I mean, right now the answer is no, but well, why is that? You could argue one way or the other. I don't know what the right answer is, but that's the concept of, maybe when things change, you will be able to, just take some tests or prove that you've got the skills.
Sure.
And in some areas, that's the way it works, right? If you're going to be a graphic designer, people that hire you say, well, show me some of your work. Oh, I like your work. Okay, I'll hire you. It's not, where did you get your degree and did you take calculus and all that kind of stuff? If you're a musician, start performing. Let's see if you can do what we need you to do. Yes, you can play that instrument well. We'll put you in the orchestra. But for other areas, of course, it's just, again, the disconnect around, well, how do I know that you would be a good fit for my business? You have a business degree, so at least you've learned something, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, once, for many professions, et cetera, once you're out of college for 5 or 10 years, the fact that you have a degree is about all they care about. And they look much more at your work history and everything else.
Sure.
And that's where people get cynical about it, right? Is, oh, I got this degree. I didn't learn a thing about what I'm doing now. Why did I spend all that time? And I think that the more cynical people especially are because they also have that $500 a month student loan
payment. Yeah.
And
that reminds them that they went to college and it's been 15 years and they're still making the payment.
Exactly. Well, that just real quick too, I wanted to, in case somebody does want to look for the best way to get financial aid and or scholarships, to research that too, where would people look for that kind of stuff?
Right. So if you go to my website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com, there's a number of resources there and a podcast, of course, where scholarships is a topic on 5 or 6 of the podcast, probably. But also we've got what I call the scholarship guide for busy parents, which is a 4-video series that kind of talks about the different types of scholarships and gives you the real basics around, well, what do I need to know about scholarships so that I can build a plan of, are we going to pursue a bunch of scholarships? Are we going to find colleges that offer scholarships? Are we going to, pursue outside scholarships like Coca-Cola and Gates Foundation and those types of things? What makes sense for our situation? And that's kind of the first step, is to at least understand the playing field and then decide, all right, these types of scholarships aren't going to work for us, but these types will, or maybe we're just better off working at McDonald's and getting our $10 an hour. Because scholarships just aren't going to work. It just depends on your situation. And, so again, there's a number of other free resources there as well. So I encourage people to just go there and dive in.
Yeah. So it's tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. That's your website.
Correct.
And we'll include that in the show notes too. So
of course,
you don't have to write down.
Yeah. You can just click on it.
Yeah.
Click. But Heather, did you have more questions as far as you're just gonna be happy when Baker gets over his cold? Cold now.
Brad's my husband's name is Brad as well. Brad is determined that Baker's going to go to the military. I am adamantly trying to fight that. But we started 529, and that's also a funky thing because some are only for state, some are reciprocal on state, some have a better interest rate. And so we're what I've heard is Utah is really good right now. And I feel like New York might be in the moms group I'm in. That's the rumor mill. And
yes.
I don't, it's just bananas to me. I'm like, Brad, handle it.
Yes, exactly. Right. And every state has one or two, and there's different benefits if you live in that state or not, and you pay taxes in that state or not. So it is relatively complicated. There is information on 529s at savingforcollege.com where they've got a little bit of information about all the plans. It's kind of like
Oh,
a
cool.
database.
That's good to know. Okay.
And there's also information on my website as well.
Nice.
Cool. And of course, your podcast.
Yes.
Go
What's the
ahead,
name of your podcast again, Brad? Sorry.
Taming the High Cost of College.
Okay,
the
not
name of the
.com, it's just a
podcast as
podcast.
well.
All right, that's
Right.
easy to remember then.
Yes.
I was going to say something and it totally spaced on me. Oh my gosh. It was, oh yes. I was going to say who's putting together a raising a child manual with all of these, because I feel right. Cause like, you're like, wait, what do I need to know now? Wait,
yeah,
what is
exactly.
this?
Mhm.
And cause when I knew Florida prepaid, and then when I had Baker, Brad's like, no, it's not $5.29. I'm like, a what? Like,
Yeah. What's a 529?
eh.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just need a manual, please.
Yeah.
Someone write that for me and I will endorse it.
It will only be about like 5 bajillion pages, but
It would.
that's
It would
okay.
fill up a library. But at the same time, at least it's there.
True.
Yes, for
Very
sure.
true. With a really good glossary.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. A searchable glossary.
Well, do you also, Brad, can people just reach out to you through your website? Do you have a specific email you like, or Instagram or anything that you like to communicate with people?
Yes, the contact us at on the Taming website works fine. You
Cool.
can get to me there. There's a phone number there as well where you can just give us a call.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Awesome,
a phone
awesome.
number. Wow.
I know. Who calls
I
anybody
love. I
anymore?
love it. No, I hate when websites hide their phone number. I hate that.
Oh,
So
me
thank
too. It
you,
drives me
Brad.
nuts.
Thank you.
Yes, that's good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Brad.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Until next time.
Yes.